Billy Carson now.
Yeah, can I get a water on stage?
People focus a lot on nutrition, body-wise. You know, I'm gonna feed this particular system of the body. I'm gonna feed that system. Very rarely do people speak about the mind. Very rarely do people speak about the brain. The brain needs the most energy, right? The brain is needed to process. The brain is needed to, you know, compartmentalize. The brain is needed for so many things, you know, but we don't know what brain food looks like, you know. We know that the body's electrical, and what I understand about gold is not only is it super conductive, but it's non-corrosive, and it's a noble element. So they say that if I am
So
what
that
I
y'all
eat,
can see.
I want to be noble. You know what I'm saying? I want to be of the highest degree, and I also
See what
want
I'm
to focus
watching,
on mental health. I want to focus on gut health. I want to focus on energy. I want to focus on youth. I want to focus on, accessing pineal activity, hormonal balance. Everything that gold represents is what I want to see more of. So what better thing to do but align myself with this particular product and get it out to as many people as I can by singing the praise of gold, which is something that our people have been doing for over 10,000 years.
I'll be on the hands. Mic check.
1, 2, 1, 2. Talk that shit, Billy. My man, Billy. Mr. Anderson. She like, hey, Billy.
There are rare human beings on this planet Earth, right? Some people consider themselves to be rare because they make a certain amount of money, right? There's other people who are rare just based on the way that they think, the way that they observe, the way that they intake information, output, input, the way that their neurons are engaged and wired. There are different types of human beings on this planet Earth.
Uh-oh. Oh no!
The way that they think and the way that they process information. Because as we talked about it before, the input of you go into a myriad of different subjects that are complex, right? That are, I would consider to be the alternate education than the pieces that are indoctrinated to the average human being, right? Not the things that's taught at school, right? And you make things that are seemingly uncool very cool, right? But some of the things that I hear you talking about, I'm probably listening to the science of it, and I said it's key, and I think that the average person knew these methods, and they had this knowledge, and they can start unlocking some of those secrets within self. Right. You know, the number 19 keys come from a quote by Master Arthur Muhammad. He was the one who taught Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was the one who raised the nation of Islam.
I don't know if I'm just tripping.
Elijah Muhammad was one of the first people in the 1930s to even talk about UFOs. Spaceships to give a very accurate and measuramental breakdown on what that was. After that, there was a program that was started to start tracking UFOs. Right? And the crazy thing about it is nobody ever challenged him on it. The government never tried to call him crazy for that. But you would think that that would be easy, low-hanging fruit.
What is that, my
They
nigga?
understood because they learned from it. See, a lot of the things that we think are crazy within our community, they sit back there and learn, absorb, and observe. They analyze the data, and then they execute based on it. So, but beyond that, you know, getting into this information and understanding, you know, just the different type of people that exist on this earth, but the life of here that is brown, right, that seemingly may have a background that is somewhere within slavery, right? If you are American
See?
slaves, then you know that slavery, chattel slavery specifically, is in your bloodline.
Wait.
There's also things in your bloodline like being a warrior, right? Being a king, being a chief, being a scientist.
Yeah.
We all want to be related to the people in ancient Kemet, but everybody wants to build the pyramids.
Right.
Right? Even if they were just workers.
Right.
Right? But I want to talk about epigenetics a little bit. And how do we as a people, because there's a lot of distrust, there's a lot of hate, there's a lot of jealousy, there's a lot of envy, there's a lot of these different things. There's, for equal of every one of those things, there's creativity, there's imagination, there's invention, there's innovation at the same time. But how do we get to a place where we can start upgrading our DNA so we can start rewriting the sequences of how we think?
Yeah. Man, this is a great topic, first of all, because this is what we need. You know what I'm saying? I don't like wasting time. When I speak words, when I put information out, I want it to serve a purpose. And this conversation is serving a purpose.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. And so when we're talking about DNA, first of all, let's understand a little bit about the DNA. DNA is a storage medium, meaning it stores information in volumes, okay? And a scientist named George Church actually took a digital ebook and encoded the digital zeros and ones into CTAGs, which are the DNA reading format, and then he downloaded that book onto DNA. Then he said, this is interesting. DNA can store digital data. Then he took the books from the DNA and he uploaded it back, put it in a little device, converted the CTAs and Gs back into zeros and ones, put it back on the server. He said, oh, this has upload and download. It can send and receive information. And then he said, let me replicate my book. Let me see how much I can fit on 1 gram of DNA. He replicated the book 70 billion times. A full book with images and photos and data and
the
words
DNA
and
in
paragraphs.
your body, buddy.
He replicated it 70 billion times to put it. 1 gram is a drop, one little tiny drop in DNA. And he said, wow. Now they're sending and receiving information from DNA via wireless information, Wi-Fi. So now they know they can transmit data, convert it, and drop it on DNA. So what they found during these studies, and the most recent studies with DNA now, is that a human body stores about 13.5 billion years of data. How old is the universe?
Exactly that age.
Astrophysicists estimate the universe is about 13.5
3.6
billion years old. So we're talking about in each one of our bodies, our atoms are storing information since the beginning of time. And if you could put it all together like a puzzle, you can read everywhere every atom in your body has ever been, and you can create a story from the beginning of time until this very current day.
Woohoo! What a story that would be.
Talk heavy again, Billy.
So, yeah.
What would your story read?
Yeah.
Because
What do you think it
I
would
want all of
look
you all
like,
to just
sound like?
feel your body right now, right?
Would it be interesting?
Like from your blood,
Would it be
DNA
worth
that exists
reading?
within it, right? Everybody has, like
But
you said, download
I guess
files.
that thought is
Some of those files
altogether
can make you
relative
strong
anyway.
with addiction.
Right.
Some of those files can make you a better fighter. Some will make you a better thinker, right?
See, I'm on my path
Everybody
right now. I'm
here
trying to
has
get right.
something within their body that they may want to overwrite, right? They may not like the way that the information is encoded within them, right? So if a person wanted to start from saying that, okay, well, I don't like the fact that I'm a hater. I want to be more like Billy and Keys.
Exactly.
How can they go about rewriting the hater DNA?
Well, that's a good question.
Quit
So
sipping the hater rain.
now
my
let's take
guy.
it to the next step. They found out that in your RNA, which is part of your genetic makeup in the DNA, it actually transmits. Now they found 15 to 20 generations of past ancestry lives, memories, actual memories are in your body.
Assassin's Creed shit.
So
Remember how they used to
15
do that
to
shit?
20 years
Like
of
the
your
first or
ancestors.
second one.
For
That's
me,
how
if
they
I have an
explained
ancestry
it
of
like
slaves,
in there.
all the whoopings, the beatings, all the buck fighting, all the teaching of infighting, or I gotta be better than this guy because this guy works in the house and he's with the house and I'm outside in the field and now I hate him and all that kind of stuff. All those traumas, there's a lot more trauma passed down, they found, through the RNA into the next generation than non-trauma. So trauma triggers something that then can pass down the bloodline to other people. So we have in us situations that make you feel like you may want to feel like you're depressed. You want to feel suicidal. And you're like, why am I feeling like this? I got a great life. You might be completely envious and jealous all the time and can't figure out a way to break out of that. Okay, you might be a person that could have an addictive personality and you can't figure out why that's happening. Okay, and a lot of this stems from epigenetics. The study was done over 20 years ago on epigenetics, and the scientists and the doctors that were working on it were laughed at, they were scoffed. They were like, this is bull, this is baloney. And now all of a sudden, bring it to the current era, it's being taught in universities now.
Right.
And this is real peer-reviewed science. They can trace and track it back. And what they found was something very interesting. If a person wants to begin to heal themselves, because this is, again, part of what you were talking about earlier, saving yourself, becoming your own savior. You are your own savior. You need to talk to yourself. That's how it's done.
Come on, talk to him.
So you're talking to yourself. So, for example, they found out that by saying positive affirmations pertaining to what you're trying to reverse in your life 3 times a day for 21 days begins the process of rewriting the DNA. That's the beginning process. This scientific experiment has been replicated now dozens of 21 days. Savior, you are your own savior. You need to talk to yourself. That's how it's done.
Come on, talk to him.
So you're talking to yourself. So, for example, they found out that by saying positive affirmations pertaining to what you're trying to reverse in your life 3 times a day for 21 days begins the process of rewriting the DNA. That's the beginning process. This scientific experiment has been replicated now dozens of times all around the world, and they know that now we have the power within our own selves through cymatic frequencies, which are the sounds that come out of your vocal cords. When you speak, you're not really, you think that you're speaking a language. You say, oh, I said this and I said that. What's really happening is you're ondulating vibrational waves, and on those vibrational waves there are frequencies. Those frequencies travel across atmosphere or gases, and then are picked up by the cochlea in your ear or somebody else's ear, and then the brain deciphers the information. But those frequencies that we utter out of our vocal cord have power over the ether of space-time itself.
They do.
This is what they don't want you to know. When you speak, you actually are creating an alternate reality. And you can do that to yourself.
No, that's key. I was listening to a neuroscientist.
Key.
That was
One
explaining,
key is right there.
You know what happens?
One of them,
even
at least.
when we're reading, right? When we're reading, our vocal cords are still active. So we're still having that vibrational frequency, right? So even when you're thinking negative thoughts, you're putting out vibrational frequencies, I believe.
Yeah.
Now, so that means that at all times throughout reality, because everybody has a particular sphere, a particular aura about themselves, right? If you ever looked at Kirlian photography, then you know that we are electrical beings, and it is beyond the human eye spectrum, but that exists. Right? Now, some people have higher orbs than others. But the key to that is the same way when you walk into a room and you can change the atmosphere, is because you actually bring atmospheric conditions with you.
Right.
And so, one of the key things that I do everywhere I go is I make sure that I set the atmosphere. I'm not changing.
You are
life,
a product of the
right?
environment.
The same way a planet
as well
has
as the
moons,
product
has
of
things that
the
orbit it.
environment.
You
Is a
have that
product
same
of you.
energy around you,
Yeah.
right? And it is always orbiting, and
Right.
it's always within a force. So for me, I know for some rooms I have to increase that
Get
force.
out of the vicious
And
cycle
it
that
happens a lot with
sticks you
self-talk,
in.
right? You walk in the
that.
room before I go, I'm a God, right? I can do whatever I want. That increases that light force.
Yeah.
So now when I walk in that room, I'm projecting the frequency. It's a nonverbal language, but people feel that about me, right? So now I'm communicating with their energy as I walk in the room.
Exactly.
Because 80% of communication is
It's
nonverbal.
energy.
It's not what you say.
Feelings.
It's mostly about what you feel.
Exactly.
Right? So when we meet people, we just get a feeling about them we don't like.
Right.
But we get a feeling about them.
Oh,
that
my
we do.
vibe off, bro.
Because they are communicating through their DNA, they're communicating through their cells. Everybody vibrates at a certain frequency and a certain pace. The people that we're at that same vibration, they gel with us.
Yeah.
That's easy. But they got a different vibration, whether it's lower or whether it's higher, they can bring yours down to that medium.
Correct.
So either you have
Why
to
is
have
it
the
that
power to be in
nobody
rooms that are
seems
of
to
higher
be around?
vibrational magnitude, or you have to have the ability to amplify the room's vibration so that it doesn't bring yours down.
Exactly. That's powerful stuff. Now, let me back him up. I went to MIT. I took a class on applied neuroscience. My professor was Dr. Tara Swart. Now, in that class, we learned that when you are sitting next to someone within 8 to 15 feet max, some people's field can go out as much as 20 feet.
19.
There you go, 19. I like it.
I got it. I just got it.
So right now, I'm sitting next to Keys. Our fields are interacting right now. Now, what's interesting is my bioelectric field and his bioelectric field are combined. My hormones that are in my body, which are right now on a high frequency, are connecting with his, and I'm downloading his into my actual avatar. They just got done watching all the stuff on TV about they about to shut the planet down again and all this kind of crazy stuff, right?
What I just do?
Hormones combined.
Oh.
There you go, 19.
I got keys.
So right now, I'm sitting next to Keys. Our fields are interacting right now. Now, what's interesting is my bioelectric field and his bioelectric field are combining. My hormones that are in my body, which are right now on a high frequency, are connecting with his, and I'm downloading his into my actual avatar, and he's downloading my energy and my frequency from my hormones into his avatar. Now imagine you're in a room full of people that's stressed out, worried, panicking. They just got done watching all the stuff on TV about they about to shut the planet down again and all this kind of crazy stuff, right? And so their cortisol is spiking. People who watch the news all day long, they're living in a super cortisol nonstop. They're addicted to the cortisol spike. Now, when you get next to them, if you're not powerful enough, if you're not speaking to yourself, speaking power on your life, they're going to enter into your body, and that cortisol is going to drain you. It's going to make you now raise your cortisol, and now you feel worse than they do.
That's a fact. No, that's powerful because everything that we're talking about is light communication.
Yeah.
Right? Same way if you go out in the morning at certain daylight hours, early when you wake up, it starts to train your circadian rhythm.
Right.
Right? So you got the super chiasmatic nucleus. I know some good words too.
Say that.
So light enters and it's training your body and then letting it know what time of the day is, what's going on.
Yeah.
Now most of us don't realize that we're existing on artificial time, right? Because we're operating on calendar systems, and we talked about this before.
Right.
But we didn't really go super in depth with it. Now, the reason I find this to be important because I've been deep on rhythms and cycles right now, right? And vibrations. And so being able to understand the fact that when your light that is literally communicating to me, we have ultraviolet light that's on the other side of the spectrum in which the eye can see, but everything vibrates a particular light, right? So when you go into a crowd like this, and the reason that people like to sage, matter of fact, I got some sage in the back, you can give me some. The reason that people like to sage is because when you have high intense energy in the room, it fills up with the ions, right? These ions are now charged up the room negatively, right? So you have to clear out that energy with that smoke, right? So they was mad at Kyrie Irving for bringing smoke on the field, but he was clearing out that energy. If you in the household and you fighting with your spouse and you putting that sage in, but then that's why people like open up the doors, let it out.
Right.
So this is not something that's fake. This is something that's been scientifically proven, right? So people don't just do these things to look fun or things of that nature. It's actually a science based on making your temple, right? We have inner temples, we have outer temples. If you have a woman, I always talked about this. Women should have them plants. They should have that sage. They should have them crystals.
Yeah.
You understand me? They should know how to create a home and a temple, right? Same thing with fellas as well, but specifically because women provide that nurturing energy, it means that she's in tune with that feminine self. Because that outer representation is an inner representation. So as we go in different places, the ability to change the environment is key. Being that we're water, we can become negatively programmed with that field. So if you're around somebody, like you said, we're combining energy. You can walk away with my negative energy.
Correct.
You understand me? And a person like, damn, why are you acting like that? Because you're just around somebody who's acting like that.
Right.
So you start to take on the rhythm of the vibration. This is what happens with binaural beats as well. Binaural beats, if you are in a heightened state, right? And if you listen to something that's considered to be like theta waves,
Yeah.
it said that your body will start to imitate the frequency, will start bringing you down into a lower, relaxed state of thinking. Right? So being able to understand frequency and vibration and light is that the key fundamental elements of understanding reality.
Absolutely, you hit it right on the head, man. Your body is resonating. Everything is resonating at a specific frequency. The reason why I can sit in this chair is not because my body is solid and the chair is solid and I'm stopping myself from falling through the chair. The reason why I can sit in this chair is because this chair, the atoms in this chair are resonating at a specific subatomic frequency, and the atoms in my body and even in my clothes are also resonating at a different subatomic frequency. And so what we're looking at is repulsion. You never actually touch anything, you repel it. Everything is repelled. You don't actually touch anything. Matter of fact, atoms are 99.999% empty space. And so the only thing stopping my hand from moving through this chair without touching anything and passing it right through is that repulsion. But if I can phase shift the atomic frequency of my hand to match the subatomic frequency of the atoms in this chair, I would pass my hand straight through it. Like I said in my video one time, there's 8 billion people on Earth, and because we're all mostly empty space, if I were to take all the empty space out of every human avatar body, I can fit all 8 billion people into one sugar cube. We're not even here.
We're not even here, my nigga. What?
So more into the brain training, right?
Yeah.
So with the CIA tapes that they released, that the gateway tapes, right, where they was doing all of these testing on the human brain and mind. And you know, with the hemisync, it was basically taking two different frequencies, one in the left, one in the right, and instead of like hypnosis, where it's putting one side essentially to sleep so that it can train in that other side, because we know that the left brain, that's logic, that's reasoning, right? That's calculation, it's pattern recognition. Where the right is to see how some creativity and imagination and a multitude of different things. But the left brain essentially tells the right brain what to do, right? So when it gives its suggestion, it basically has no barriers to fight it. It just receives it. So meaning that you can program logical things into your imagination with full acceptance.
Yeah.
So that left brain becomes that barrier for you to just take in any information. But now when you're listening to music, what's happening? You're bobbing your head, right? You are in a state of agreement, right? You are relaxed. That left brain is falling asleep. And now that right brain is there to just receive suggestion. Right now, I wanted to talk about the hemisync because, you know, I've been training my own brain and I've been listening to these binaural beats. And I believe that everybody
every night,
right? You
every
find
night.
yourself in a heightened sense of, you know, anxiety or stress or depression. Listen to nothing but binaural beats.
Every night. I do this shit every night. That's crazy that I'm watching this, man.
Right?
I've been doing
Now
this.
that theta wave is the second to being the deepest part of sleep. Because even when
Easiest
we
way to
sleep,
get
we go
to
through
sleep
different
is
cycles,
I
right?
find it when
Heightened,
you listen to the
right,
theta
to a very
wave
low
binaural
unconscious
beats.
state of sleep where we are
The vibration make it just
rest.
does it.
And even if somebody was making noise, you wouldn't be able to hear them.
Nope.
Right.
So then we have the states where we go towards closer to lucid dreaming. And lucid dreaming normally happens when you're actually about to wake, not in your deeper parts of sleep, because you're closer to consciousness,
trying to do that.
right? Awakened state. So as we exist in this reality,
Gland is
we're
calcified.
always dreaming. We either have dreams where we have them by ourselves, or we have dreams where we have collective dreams with everybody else, right? The thing about the collective dream is that we are all our own nomads and our frequencies are fighting everybody else's frequencies.
Right.
So you don't have the ability to explicitly just to control reality the same way you can in your self-dreaming states. Now your mind is fighting against my mind, right? For control over reality and what's real and what's not real. Reality essentially is just this collection of ideas that we believe or we don't believe. And perception is skewed based on what we believe.
Right.
So, but I wanted to know some of your take on the hemisync files, right, that the CIA was doing, because they basically was telling the world after they released them in the 90s, right, that, you know, consciousness is real, and that having psychic, intuitive abilities is real, and they can be honed and trained.
Right. Yeah, they have these files that have released this information. This is really powerful stuff because what they discovered, a couple of things. The first thing they discovered is everyone has extrasensory capabilities.
Yeah.
Extrasensory powers, telekinesis, psychic ability, you know, the ability to actually move things with your mind. That all that stuff is actually a normal part of the human avatar body. The junk DNA, the disconnected DNA is not really junk. That's part of the thing that has held us back from tapping into some of those original talents and skills and those sensory perceptions that we already had. They also discovered something where they actually, through the same testing of this, before they came up with this document, was they took two people. They took one person and put them in one room, put another person in another room. The person in one room was blindfolded. The other person was looking at a game screen, a video game screen. It was a very simple game like Pong or something. Now, they were able to sync the minds between the two people, and the person that was just looking at the screen was able to think of the movements that they needed to make. The other person was blindfolded and had the controller and was remote control the other person's hand. So we know the power of, they don't understood the power of mind linking, mind suggestion, the capability that minds are outside of space and time, but minds can also sync together to help create a specific type of reality. This is powerful stuff.
Right.
They also understood that they can also lure you into through frequencies, through the media. They can transmit subliminal frequencies, and at the same time they're doing that, they can make suggestions to the other side of your brain. And now your brain is taking it all in, and now they just program you. That's why I call it programming.
Right.
And now they got robots, us, walking around, and they have these keywords and these triggers that they use, and different marketing things, and the different signs, and the different buildings and movies. And they do experiments on us to trigger us to see what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, if the programming took, and which group of people the programming took to the best and didn't. So this is pretty crazy stuff.
Now, speaking of that, right? I was watching a study. You know, one of them is that there's this wild theory on the internet that the internet is dead, right? And then there's another that shows that how, you know, if you're going to look at most of the text on these companies, they have become simplified, right, over time and over time. And part of the reason this typography has become simplified is because the computers are making it, right? That whether we realize it or not, that most of our reality is now computer generated, right? So the creativity and the imagination and the color is becoming less and less because the computer looks at things from a quantitative data standpoint, where it looks at, you know, what's the most efficient and effective way to make it. So the computer doesn't have emotion, so it doesn't create with a range of creativity. Where if you look at some of the old logos, some of the old designs of doors, some of the old designs of things, we created things in an extravagant manner, right? Now things are being created in a very square, cubicle, computer design reality. So even if you go outside and you look around, sometimes you only see black and white cars, right? You don't realize that the world is now being generated by computers and we're actually living in a computer domain. So when computers started to speed up and make decisions for man is no longer in control of his reality, right? And now they're trying to get it to a point where artificial intelligence can have complete control of reality, so where you don't have to make decisions. One of the things that I've been showing and teaching people was about how to use text to image. They have text to speech, right? Where you no longer have to be the creator. You no longer have to be the generator. No longer have to be the designer. Now you're just partnering with the AI, telling it what to do, and it's creating a reality for you. But at the same time, this theory has always been there where people say that we live inside of a matrix, right? Where it's completely computer generated. And there's always some people, they don't care about that. They just, as long as they're living a good life inside the computer, they're happy, right? We have a symbiotic relationship with our computers. Now, when I say computers, I'm talking about what y'all call iPhones. But iPhones are nothing but mini computers that was branded as phones because it's easier to sell a phone, right? You selling the average mom and pop a computer, they may say, I don't need one. But everybody needs a phone. And so when human beings started to get computers, it sped up everybody's processing capability and speeds, right? Now reality is at that point where most people don't understand it. We all have access to all this information and all these different domains that we get for free because it costs us nothing to learn anymore, but we no longer know how to think, right? So now we are the most informed society on the planet Earth with the least ability to actually think for ourselves, right? So we have to get to a point where we question reality. Questioning is probably the most powerful tool that any human being can have, right? See, any domain that wants complete control in any institution does not want a questioning mind around. The questioning mind is the child's mind. The child's mind is not being properly programmed into indoctrination or where you're told things and you accept it without question. That's indoctrination or little force. So the child is, why do we have to do this?
Right.
Why do we have to go to church? Why do I have to wear this? Why do I have to act like this?
Yeah.
The adult then becomes programmed to tell the child the reason why.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But God is always in the why.
Right.
Right? Because
Right.
God is one's understanding and logic and reasoning, because God built everything, which we want to get into with the golden ratio.
Right.
Built everything based on sacred geometry.
Right.
Right? So he didn't just make things by accident. There's not just a plant or an herb out there for accident.
Right.
Every single thing in reality has a purpose and has a reason. Even when we look at some of the most beautiful designs on the planet Earth that are the most famous ones, they're designed with golden ratios.
Yeah.
They're designed with sacred geometry because they were able to understand that the human beings have certain connections to this mathematics.
Right.
The highest level of reasoning in reality is understanding that all is mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I want to get into sacred geometry and get your understanding of the golden ratio.
Yeah, definitely. The golden ratio is a beautiful thing. It's actually part where you now we're looking into. If you look at the pantheon, if you go to Greece and Rome, you look at the construction of these buildings with the ancient pantheon, these monuments that men built to the gods.
Yeah.
You'll see that they're built with the golden ratio, which is this particular type of a rectangle with certain specific dimensions. And inside of those dimensions, you can create the Fibonacci sequence, which is this swirl. Now, what they found was that why are these structures so beautiful, and why are some of the greatest artists in the world painting so beautiful? It's because they were able to find the golden ratio with the Fibonacci and pi and phi inside the paintings. So these people had a wisdom and knowledge of the sacred geometry, which is really the essence of all creation back then. And so now they're looking at it and sort of analyzing the human body and began to realize like the distance between the top of your nose and the bottom of your lip, and between the two eyes and between your ears, and the distance from your elbow to the wrist, it all also exhibits aspects of the golden ratio in the Fibonacci sequence. And so in America, in the court legal system, if you have enough circumstantial evidence, somebody can go to jail, right? You say, this is the person that did it. You can get locked up if there's enough circumstantial. So there's enough circumstantial evidence. Somebody has left behind a signature on creation. All right? There's a book that I have called Sefer Raya. It's a very small text, a very ancient text. In this text, it's only been translated into 3 languages, but goes all the way back to Aramaic as well. And it has in there a special coding system written into the text. And a researcher and author named Greg Brady, some of you may know him, he was able to, with a group of scientists, decipher the code and match those numbers that were associated with letters to the atomic structures on all the different elements that make up the human body. And what they found was the same thing as the golden ratio, which is like a signature. They also found etched into every strand of DNA, Yahweh, which is the name of God, etched into every single strand of DNA in the human body, which is pretty interesting. And so again, we're seeing the signature. It's like, this is my mathematical construct. These are how I build things with my subatomic Legos. And that's going to be the Fibonacci and the golden ratio and pi and phi. And then now when I'm done, I'm going to sign my creation. Yeah. And so that spelling of Yahweh was removed from the Torah 6,800 times because they said no one should be able to see it or speak it. And it still has never been added back to the Torah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, we know why, because, you're always trying to hide the signature of God.
Exactly.
It's even in the Quran, there's a code within the Quran called the 19 code, right? And so the man who found this code, he was actually assassinated, right? There was a lot of people who did not like him for this. Right now, this 19 code was basically finding mathematical properties within the Holy Quran, surahs, verses that always added up to the number 19. And there's a verse in it that says, over it are 19. Right? The 19th surah of the Quran is Maryam, the woman. Right? The 19th chapter, 19th verse is the only chapter speaking on the birth of Christ. So within that, the birth of Christ is more so about crystallizing consciousness. Right? And having that Christ consciousness. Now, that Christ consciousness is, in its Mother Tanetta was one who I studied later on, she was one of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's wives.
Okay.
But what she did is she went to Mexico. She said the Honorable Elijah Muhammad told her to go to Mexico and find the next knowledge, essentially. Right? So she would study all multitude of different things. The crystals, the different prophecies that existed on that side, right? And artificial time sequences, right? In the 19 code. But one thing that she said she did, she said she would read the Quran week to week, every single day, page by page. Yeah. And what it allowed her to do was tap into the frequency of God, because it had crystallized her thoughts. Well, only thing that she could think was based on the thinking of the Quran. Right? And I think about that because if you're trying to program yourself to a certain frequency, and that's why I always say what you do frequently becomes your frequency. Right? Right? That she was able to crystallize in this Christ consciousness, and it always existed at this higher level. So when you spoke to her, she always spoke in a very powerful tone, as a matter of fact tone, as a thinking like a God tone. And she would say that the ultimate principles was getting to the mind of God. Right? And this is why I always tell people that distraction is the most dangerous thing on the planet Earth. Right? Because your job is to get focused. Right? Right? The most dangerous man on the planet Earth is a focused man. Absolutely. A man tell you he gonna do something, but he's distracted, you ain't worried about it. Yeah, he ain't worried. That man always moving from point A to B, he ain't really mean that. Yeah. But if you know a man tells you to do something, and you know he's the type of person that says be and it is, right? The moment he get a thought, there's another point in time where that thought is a reality, because he just wants to focus until he brings it into reality. That's a dangerous man. Absolutely. So if he has a dangerous plan and he says something, you get worried that moment. Right. But see, you know, Negroes be talking about shit they gonna do all the time. They don't never do nothing. You understand me? Yeah. But when we talking about mathematics, there's also certain personality types that are mathematical. Yeah. INTJ types, ENTJ types. These are the mathematical types that have to be alone, right? Because that's when you can actually hear God by yourself, right? So I'm one of those personality types. In order for me to have original thoughts, I don't need to be in social environments. I need to hear myself, right? That's when God is talking to me and I'm on an original rhythm, not on social rhythm, right? So people that are on social media, they're on the social rhythm of the world, right? So when you get by yourself, spend 30 minutes by yourself. Right, especially if you're a mathematical type, because you're more introverted. Yeah. Right? Mathematical or introverts are just people who prefer to spend time alone. Right? And extroverted are people who spend time with other people. They want to be in social environments. But I challenge everybody here is to literally see if you can spend 30 minutes to an hour a day by yourself, doing nothing, sitting still. Yeah. Whether it's a transcendental meditative state, or you're just by yourself to hear you. But I know for a fact most people don't want to hear their inner thoughts. Yeah. They're afraid of that. Right? Yeah. So you get into social rhythm so you don't have to hear yourself. So you hear everybody else but what you think, and so you never deal with that inner voice of God. So if you ignore God on a daily basis, and you're mad that nothing is happening in your blessing, nothing is happening in your favor, especially when God gives you an idea and you don't act off of it like it's time sensitive, you're literally ignoring God for the devil of distractions. Yeah. I agree. Right? I'm alone. 30 minutes by yourself. Right? Especially if you're a mathematical type, because you're more introverted. Yeah. Right? Mathematical or introverts are just people who prefer to spend time alone, right? And extroverted are people who spend time with other people. They want to be in social environments. But I challenge everybody here is to literally see if you can spend 30 minutes to an hour a day by yourself, doing nothing, sitting still. Yeah. Whether it's a transcendental meditative state, or you're just by yourself to hear you. But I know for a fact most people don't want to hear their inner thoughts. Yeah. They're afraid of that. Right? Yeah. So you get into social rhythm so you don't have to hear yourself. So you hear everybody else but what you think, and so you never deal with that inner voice of God. So if you ignore God on a daily basis, and you're mad that nothing is happening in your blessing, nothing is happening in your favor, especially when God gives you an idea and you don't act off of it like it's time sensitive, you're literally ignoring God for the devil of distractions. Yeah. I agree. One thing that I learned in my whole journey to my knowledge of ascension, which is still ongoing, it's a never-ending process,
learning every single day is that when I was younger, that voice that I used to hear was coming from out there somewhere. And it was something that I had imagined in my mind was this being flying around and, you know, had a magic wand and all this stuff, granting wishes to people. That was my own dream. That was my own perception.
Yeah.
And as I grew up and as I started to gain knowledge more and more and more and began to realize certain things about life and reality and dimensions and creation,
Right.
that voice in my head, that God voice, it started morphing. I started realizing when I would do my meditation walks and I would go for these big walks, the voice turned into my own voice. And I realized that God was actually me talking to myself from a higher dimension.
Talk to him.
And so when I had my own voice, I started to gain knowledge more and more and more and began to realize it was coming from out there somewhere. And it was something that I had imagined in my mind was this being flying around and, you know, had a magic wand and all this stuff, granting wishes to people. That was my own dream. That was my own perception.
Yeah.
And as I grew up and as I started to gain knowledge more and more and more and began to realize certain things about life and reality and dimensions and creation,
Right.
that voice in my head, that God voice, it started morphing. I started realizing when I would do my meditation walks and I would go for these big walks, the voice turned into my own voice. And I realized that God was actually me talking to myself from a higher dimension.
Talk to him.
And so when I heard the voice, I began to say, wow, it's really me, because we know that we are receiving a signal. There's only one consciousness. And all of us are receiving that same one consciousness, but on a slightly different frequency. I'm 99.1, he's 99.2, you're 99.3, so forth and so on. But the radio station is sending out the signal from a higher location. And my avatar body has been designed to encapsulate 99.1. And so I'm getting the information and it morphs, and now it's my own voice. And it doesn't mean I have a God complex. It means I understand that I am a version, a fractal of God walking in the flesh. That's what it means.
Come on.
True.
Now,
That's deep.
we talked about it before, right? We talked about these melanin spacesuits that we got,
Yeah.
right? Which allow us to go through atmospheric conditions at a better rate than everybody else, right? But specifically with melanin is a very powerful thing, right? Because we can absorb more radiation than any other beings on the planet Earth. The darker you are, the more radiation you can absorb, right? So you have to understand, even when you're looking at your brown skin, you're looking at frequency or radiation trapped within that. This is literally light trapped within your body, right? This is why you go outside, you go in the light, and it gets darker. So that means that we also happen to exist at a heightened state of frequency because we have more energy, we have more radiation, which means that we become a very emotional people, but at the same time, we can utilize that emotion, alchemize it, and bring things out within us.
Right.
So the goal is, if you take the most powerful people on the planet Earth and you program them, you use their womb, their mind, and their bodies, right, to program your ideas. Now you have the most powerful vessel on the planet Earth, bringing that into reality. So when we look at America, America understood this secret, right? The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said in 1995 when he was at the Million Man March, and he stood on those steps at the Jefferson Memorial, and he was giving a breakdown of the secret of the number 19, and he was explaining like this is the 13th president representation, the 16th president representation, and he was talking about the monuments that were 19 feet high. But he was explaining that because he was saying that 1 and that 9, you know, when they come together, represents a secret to be uncovered or unfolded, right? And so that's that masculine and that feminine, and together they represent God. Now, the secret of America was always learning how to capture and control God and utilize him.
Right.
So when